Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, so I'm going to start somewhere that not, typically how we start these episodes, but yesterday you had a post on LinkedIn. It was a picture of you like on the stairs. And basically, sometimes kind of you get these panic attacks that literally like immobilize you for, like 15, 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. And that a lot of it was, maybe all of it was like due to the stress of, running a startup and everything that means. So, I saw that and I was like, founder psychology, mental health, all these sort of issues, like just they always could be talked about more than they're actually talked about. They're talked about more now than they used to be. But they still don't get the time I think that they deserve. And so like, I thought I'd start there and just kind of ask like high level, like what was going on. I mean, that was the short version, the LinkedIn post. Maybe we can get the longer version of here, like what was happening in that moment and what happened generally like in those moments.
Welcome to the Product Market Fit Show, brought to you by Mistral, a seed stage firm based in Canada. I'm Pablo. I'm a founder turned VC. My goal is to help early stage founders like you find product market fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to talk about it because, to your point, I don't think it's talked about enough. And yet I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of private messages from that post from founders saying they struggle with it too. And thank you for talking about it. And I had one guy send me a note saying, is this a prerequisite to being a startup founder? And I said, I'm not sure, but I definitely know it's common. And so, I'll just speak about it, personally for myself. I obviously can't speak to other people's experience, but, there's different types of stress. I had a previous venture where it was bootstrapped, and making payroll was super stressful, and just making sure that you're able to keep the lights on. And this one, current venture, is much more venture backed, and we have a lot of cash on the balance sheet, and so payroll isn't the stress. But I have more people, over 100 folks on the team now, that I do take their livelihood super responsible, and our customers. And maybe some people say I care too much, but I care a lot about that. And I try to hold it together when I'm with the team and with customers, and not like I'm having these things in the middle of meetings or whatnot, but it's almost like my body has a delayed response. And so I think stress hits people differently. And one guy was telling me that, he has some stomach issues, or like it has to come out some way. And I've tried to work on, it happens less frequently than it used to. Honestly, for me, I've gotten a pretty good routine of exercise and meditation, and there are tools that help for sure. But it's not like it's a magic switch that, necessarily is going to just be gone forever. And so,
But so what happens like in those moments? Yeah.
yeah. So for me, my heart starts racing. I feel like my body is telling me that I'm gonna die, even though mentally I know I'm not, and I've been through this and I know what this is. But the sensations in the body are so powerful that it almost, tricks your brain. And so for me, I have kind of a routine that I briefly described that tries to help, me get in and out of those faster. But like I said, I
What is it? Yeah. Like, what do you do?
well, for me, it's a combination of medication. My doctors prescribe me a Xanax, which I take only when I have those. I know that's something that people can I've heard people can get addicted to. And so I'm very careful not to make that regular. But if I feel one of those coming on, I'll take that. I'll try to get to a place where I'm not alone. So even like if I can get to one of my dogs, that they're almost like therapy dogs for me, where they know, and they'll just sit there and let me pet them. And it's almost like they can sense, what I'm going through. And then just positive self-talk, and just trying to tell myself, one, I'm going to be okay. And then two, whatever is kind of stressing me out, or whatever I'm worrying about, life is so much bigger than that. And setbacks and whatnot is not going to define kind of who I am as a person. And so those are kind of that's the formula, that I've found to be the most successful, in terms of something that maybe, an episode that could last an hour, I could maybe knock down to 10 minutes now. And so trying to kind of minimize, one, it happening at all. And then two, if it does, how can I get in and out of it as quickly as possible?
You mentioned like the employees, and I understand the responsibility, obviously, of a founder CEO having employees. I guess my question is, what about that puts so much weight on your shoulder? Because if you, from a cold, calculated standpoint, you could argue, listen, you're hiring top 10, top 20 percentile people in an event where Aiwyn doesn't go well, things go sideways, and you have to do layoffs. They'll be fine. Like they'll probably find another job within, a month, 2 months in most cases, and they'll be fine. I know that's cold and calculated, but I guess I wonder what story do you feel like when you think about these things that makes you feel like that much, responsibility and care for these individuals?
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned certainly is logical and is accurate. I guess I feel a sense to one of the primary motivators for when I started Iwin after having sold my last company was to help create opportunities and wealth for other people, not just myself. And so even the amount of equity kind of gave away, and everyone in the company has equity. That's just a really important reason of why I'm doing this and why I put in the hours I do. I mean, some people could say, hey, maybe you should, back off the hours. You've already had some success, and that's just not the way I'm wired. So, right or wrong, I played sports growing up. There was never a coach that could motivate me or criticize me more than I was already criticizing or motivating myself. I've just been internally wired that way.
What's like your routine? Like you mentioned a lot of hours. What does your typical week look like?
I don't have a typical day just in terms of, but I'll usually get on and start working around 7:30 in the morning. I'll try to take a dinner break with the family, but then I'm probably on, 8 to 11 then at night. And I'll work most Saturdays. Sundays, I try to have it be a lighter day where I'm just kind of maybe checking emails, making sure I'm not I have to feel a responsibility for me to never be the bottleneck in the organization. I don't want the reason something can't get done is because I haven't been responsive enough. That just means I'm always on, rightly or wrongly. So even when I'm on vacation, I'm still plugged in. And again, I know that's not.
Do you feel like that's necessary? Because a lot of people talk about balance and these sort of things, and there's a lot of different ways to think about it. And I think there's stages where like your business gets to a certain stage where you can do that and it's reasonable. What's your take on those early days, like zero to product market fit days? Like, can a founder actually assume they're going to have any balance, or do you think
No.
being there all the time is just what it takes?
I was fortunate this last week. I actually went back and taught some classes on entrepreneurship at my alma mater. And one of the things I told the students, in my opinion, this is Justin's opinion, not the school's official opinion or the professors, that work-life balance, at least in a startup, is a myth. And anyone that tells you that is just lying to you or hasn't achieved anything. And I like to think of it as work-life seasons and harmony. So there will be periods. I mean, when I sold my last company, I could have taken as much time off. I could have never worked again. I had a lot of options that I wouldn't have had I been chasing balance. So I was out of balance for a number of years, but then I had a lot more options to, create the harmony or balance or whatever I wanted in my life. But I think if you're just chasing balance all the time, I think you just end up being mediocre at everything. But that's just my opinion.
Why is that, by the way? Why do you think that in those early, especially those early days, like the zero product market fit days, that you need to be so all in?
In a startup, every single thing is against you. You don't have customers. You don't have money. All you have is, an idea, maybe an idea and hard work. And so you're competing, in a space where you're going to have either competitors, there's incumbents, et cetera, that have all the resources that you don't. And the only thing you have is speed. And to take advantage of that speed, you have to be all in. Maybe there's some people that have been successful starting something, and didn't need speed or could kind of, do it halfway. I've yet to see, many examples of it. And you're playing odd, or it's like poker where you don't know anything for sure, but you're trying to give yourself the best, calculated odds possible. And I think, being all in, putting in that effort is something that, shifts your odds. I don't know, it's a lot or slightly, but it definitely shifts it. And so to not do so, you're basically saying, I'm okay, with the outcome being lower odds. And for me, why would I even start? I'm not going to play that game if I'm not going to put the odds as much in my favor as humanly possible.
I think that's totally true. Obviously, there's exceptions to everything, and I'm sure there's people who have, done something successful with less hours and this and that. But I think on the whole, that's the reality, and it's that way because of something you said, which is status quo in the startup. Again, especially pre-product market fit. Obviously, we focus a lot on that, so I talk a lot about that stage. I'm not saying after product market fit, it's all easy and you can go to the beach, but as you get bigger, status quo starts to change, and there is an inner momentum that does let you pull away in ways that are just not possible. Because in the beginning, status quo is failure. Like status quo is your startup's gonna die, and so like it really takes so much energy for things to not default to status quo and just completely fall apart. And I think that's one of the reasons why that zero product market fit stage just requires so much mental energy, so much hard work, so many hours in, and kind of that all in presence. Okay, well, maybe that's a good segue then to actually dive into the full story, right? So today we'll talk more than anything about your current startup, Aiwyn. I think it's quite relevant that you had a startup before this that you mentioned a few times called Waystar that I understand was bootstrapped and ultimately acquired. Maybe tell us like what that was about and kind of what the story is there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company was called Digitize.ai, and Waystar acquired it. And Waystar is now a public company, went public about a month ago. But I had been working in and around back office process automation for a number of years while I was at PwC, and just thought that was a trend that was going to continue. And so found a use case automating part of the revenue cycle in healthcare. And so decided to start that company. It's kind of the classic, put all your chips on the table, empty the bank account and kind of hope it works out.
What did it do? Like, what was the problem it solved?
In the US healthcare system with insurance companies, before you have certain medical procedures, let's say you tore your ACL and you need to go in for a knee surgery, the hospital needs to get what's called a prior authorization from the insurance company, meaning it's like a pre-approval that if that hospital does your knee surgery, that your insurance company will reimburse them for that. And when I started looking at that problem, I was shocked by how manual it was. It's quite literally an army of people either faxing or phone calling into these insurance companies, getting these approvals. And
this is when, like, we're talking like 8 years ago or so?
This was 2016. Yeah, so about 8 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And it's better today, but it's still you'd still be shocked by. I just saw a revenue cycle company in the news, raised $35 million yesterday. So like there's still a lot of issues and the US healthcare is the number one, expense, discretionary expense, in the United States. And it's other countries obviously different, but in the US there's a lot of money spent and it's just very inefficient the way that the system's been set up. And so very manual. And so we built a pretty narrow slice of technology, but was fortunate that, to be in the right place at the right time. And a private equity firm, Bain Capital, was consolidating a number of technology solutions in the space. And we were one of the solutions that got consolidated. And that was, as again, Waystar is now a public company. I think it went public about a month ago, but that was kind of their, call it 10-year journey to consolidating the industry and putting together a company that could stand on its own end-to-end solution that could be, publicly floated in the United States.
How big did Digitize AI get, like revenue-wise, employee-wise? Like, how much can you share about the actual acquisition?
Yeah, we were just about, I think, 15 employees at the time, and again, we had a number of kind of big customers, but it was really more a technology play, and because we had to bootstrap it. Again, we weren't hiring, couldn't really hire for growth right ahead of the revenue that we brought in, and so it was a not a bad model because you don't, from an equity perspective, you're not diluted like you are when you're, raising, significant venture. But there's just different, there's positives and negatives, bootstrapping versus, venturing and
Of course. I mean, the upside is if whatever the exit is, I mean, you get way more of it. I assume the exit was probably what, like 7-figure, low 8-figure kind of range, but you were, majority shareholder sort of thing.
yeah, it was 8 figures, majority shareholder. So
Exactly.
it's enough to be like, life changing.
100%. Okay, cool. And so then that happens. What happens between then and starting Aiwyn? I guess I'm interested in the origin story of Aiwyn and what leads you to do that.
Yeah, so I stayed with the acquiring firm until right around COVID hit, and I was pretty burned out at that point, just given the intensity of that build and sell, and so thought that would be a natural transition point to step back and take a breath, and obviously as the world was shutting down, and so I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I didn't think I would start another company. Like I said, I was pretty burned out. I didn't know, I was 36 at the time. What am I going to do with the rest of my life, kind of thing. And so wanted to take some time to figure it out. And I'd say probably a month or two after that, I just woke up one morning and I went to bed the night before, burned out, and I woke up the next morning and the fire was back in my belly to do it again.
Just like that.
Just like that. And I don't know
Crazy.
what happened that night while I was sleeping, or what caused it, but it was tangible and real. And so I said, if I'm going to do this again, I had a couple conditions. One is I wanted to go the venture route, build something, really with scale, meaningful. And the second is I wanted to go from having a really small founding team to bringing on a lot of people beside me. And so pretty unusual. We started with 5 co-founders in the business. And, obviously that comes with, a lot of equity dilution, but then you also start with this team that are all real owners and bought in.
Did that work out, or did any end up leaving or quitting or anything like that?
No, as of today, we still have all 5 co-founders.
Wow. That's
in
very
the business.
unusual.
Yeah, 4 years later. So, now the roles have changed and shifted, and we've had to do that. But the good news is, pretty low ego team in the sense that, if there was a better role to play, that a lot of times they'd be the first people to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I think I'm going to create more value over here," or we've scaled to the point beyond where I'm talented at. Like, let's bring in someone that has seen this next level of scale, and so definitely a special group of people to build alongside.
So you decide that you want to do something big. You'd want to do something in venture that's venture backed. You're okay with having many co-founders, but what are you actually going after? What's the problem that speaks to you that you want to solve?
So I was at PwC, as I mentioned, for a number of years and saw how technology was bought and adopted within the firm. And PwC spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year on technology. And I said, well, what are the firms that maybe aren't the big 4, right? What do they spend it on? And so I had that open question combined with the experience of when I sold the first company, the accounting firm that was doing the due diligence for me did a good job, good work product. And then when it came time to bill them, or for them to bill me, made it really painful. I got an invoice 2 or 3 months after the transaction closed, and it said, mail our $80,000 due to this PO box. And I was like, I don't even have I closed the SVB account because I already distributed all the funds. I don't have a checkbook. And so I think I ended up writing a personal check to pay them. And it just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And it's like, why would you put friction or make it painful for me to give you money? Right. And so so that kind of got us thinking, hey, maybe this accounting technology space would be a good area to look at building in. And it turns out, there's a couple of very large incumbents that aren't always the most innovative. And so we just thought it was a good market to kind of go after. And my vision is kind of what, a company here in the United States called Anduril, and what they're doing to defense contractors is similar to what I think Aiwyn can do in the accounting tech space, in terms of just modern, good technology that works and creates a lot of value. So that's the kind of bigger vision, but obviously you don't start there, right? You have to start with a product that gets traction and get to product market fit, and then if you can get to that point, it then affords you the opportunity to expand from there.
And what was that first product that like that wedge that gets you going?
So for us, it was actually an easy to use client payment experience. And so the pain that I felt around paying the accounting firm, we solved for, was the product that we built. And so early on, what I would tell the team is, I spend way too much money on Amazon because they make it, all I have to do is swipe right and I can buy things, and they've taken all the friction out of paying. And I said, the hypothesis we had is, if we created a similar experience, would people pay their accounting bills faster? And the hypothesis and the data proved out. So not only was it a better experience as a client, not getting a paper invoice, or being able to pay easily, what we found was like 40% of the payments started to come through mobile. It was so easy. People were sitting in the back of their Ubers, just clearing out their.
And they were paying with what? Like, were they paying via wire, or were they paying via credit card? Like, what was the common thing at first?
Yeah, credit card and ACH are the two ways in the US that they tend to pay.
And what was, like, I guess one of the things that makes it hard for me to understand is, like, e-commerce is so developed. Payments is general so developed. Obviously, Stripe being the big one, Bold, like whatever. There's so many different things. Like, how come these guys were running on like paper invoices? And it sounds like that first solution that you had seems like super simple. Like, is that, I don't, like, what was reality? I guess help me understand, like, what was missing that you guys saw that nobody else had, like, put together.
These legacy systems that these firms were running on, because they're legacy, they don't have APIs. And so modern technology hasn't been built on top of it. Down market in the SMB space, there is a lot of modern technology because smaller firms will use QuickBooks and QuickBooks has modern APIs, but the larger firms literally have these systems that data goes into, and you can never get the data out. And so they were having to manually, pull the data out of the system and send these invoices.
And these are the systems where they're tracking, like, billable hours, like what they've actually, the work they've
Exactly.
actually done.
That's right.
Okay, I see. And so your secret or your unique insight, or whatever buzzword you want to use, was actually just doing the work to build on top of these legacy systems.
Yeah, we had to invent a technology that could sit on top of these systems. And it's called our translation engine, and we've patented it. And so we have a brilliant CTO who kind of figured out how to do this, and no one, even to today, 4 years later, has kind of figured out how to do that.
And so that's definitely like the secret sauce, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm throwing all these buzzwords, but I guess the question is, like, when you then go out to sell that, sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, right? Like, you're going to people who obviously live in the real world, like they're used to paying on Amazon and all these other places, and you're going to them like, I'm the only one given the stack that you use that could enable that for your business. Did you feel like it was that well received?
Yeah, one of the things we did too early on is, I'm a big believer in building with customers, and not kind of, I think one of the mistakes I see a lot of entrepreneurs is, like, create a really cool technology in a garage and then come out and say, who wants it? And sometimes people want it, but oftentimes they're building a better mousetrap that isn't necessarily needed. And so we actually had 3 beta customers that we were building our initial MVP with. And so we tried to find different size firms, so kind of a mid-size, little larger, and then big, and to make sure that whatever we were building was applicable across our total addressable market. And so what we did is we said, hey, if you give us the time and feedback as we build this, we'll give you heavy discounts if you like it, and B, there's no obligation, like to use it if you don't like what you see at the end of the day. And so we de-risked it for these beta customers to kind of help us make sure that what we were building really made sense for them.
So it was free for them as you built it?
It wasn't free. It was heavily discounted, and they had an opt out. We said, hey, when we think it's complete enough, we're gonna say that it's now live, and at that point, you can opt out and walk away, and no obligations, or if you like it, you can use it at 20% of what we're going to sell it for. Something.
I see.
Yeah, something. I'm not a big believer in giving stuff away for free. I just think there's a psychological thing that even if someone's paying $1 for, they value it differently than free, and so that's actually both companies. I've never done a free pilot or given anything away for free because I just fundamentally don't believe in that. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I would agree. I mean, I find free is dangerous. Like free can just lead you astray. And I've seen founders start with free and have it work. So it's definitely not black and white. But for me, it's a little scary because you just never know what's actually going to happen when you're like, okay, cool, now it's time to pay. And they're like, actually, I don't like it that much.
There's something psychological that happens, right, about when someone's paid for something and is bought in.
Well, maybe my first question is actually, when you talk about these legacy systems, were there like a handful of these systems that everybody used, or was it like very fragmented and you had to build on top of a lot of different legacy systems?
Yeah, that was one of the things to our advantage is there's only a handful really that has critical mass in the industry. And so we've expanded, but in terms of kind of getting going, just having a couple of these gave us enough to really go after and go to market with. And one of I talked to a lot of people about what it is like selling to accounting firms, and a lot of them can, not all, but some of them are risk adverse, and just by the nature of, when you're trained to be an auditor, you're looking for what's wrong, right? That's kind of the mindset you have. And so, but the one thing, going back to a point you made earlier, is they understand numbers. And so if you can show a strong, real ROI, then they'll adopt it, especially if they're, I think outside of that initial, beta firms that really took a chance on us and believed in us, everyone we've signed since then have done multiple reference calls with other firms to make sure that they're de-risking, that buying decision.
And what's the main ROI? Is it get paid faster? Is it have less like bad debt? Like what's the number one thing that this does for them?
Yeah, so it's all the above. It decreases DSO pretty dramatically. So in one case, we saw a firm's DSO drop in half. So it went from, I'll call it like 4 months to 2 months.
So that's the days it takes to get paid.
Day sales outstanding.
Exactly.
Months, yeah. Uh-huh.
Now 2 months. Yeah.
And accounting firms are cash businesses. A lot of people don't realize, because it's a partnership, what they do is whatever profit that they've accrued over a quarter or a year gets distributed to the partners. And so they're not sitting on a pile of cash like maybe a corporation is. And so the speed of cash coming in is actually really important. So anyone that's run a business before understands, the importance of cash flow. So that's a huge thing. The other benefits, the client experience was a lot better, and a lot of firms are looking for how do we differentiate ourselves by creating a better client experience and across the board. And certainly that payment is part of that. And then internally, it just reduced a lot of manual work that the finance team was having to previously do all this manually, and
which is true, like overhead, like that's not billable hours work ever. I would
exactly
think.
That's right. That's just true back office, overhead costs.
And what's the business model that you went with? Like, do you take a percent of that transaction? I assume the numbers are too big to take a real cut, or is it just pure SaaS? Like, how do you structure it?
It's a combination of the two. So our model is we have a SaaS fee for the platform, and then we do have some payment volume that revenue that's kind of the delta between what comes in and what our costs are.
What's the ACV?
About, I'd say now at this point, about 60K.
Okay, so they're meaningful typically. And then I guess going back, like those three beta customers. Did all three end up converting to full customers?
I wish I could say yes. Two of the three did. One, the biggest one was going through a major new ERP implementation and just felt like they didn't have the capacity or bandwidth to convert. But we're still talking to them, so we're hope springs eternal on that one.
But with two of three, you still felt at the time like you were still solving kind of a must-have problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we weren't talking to other firms as we were kind of building this with them, right? We were in the market talking about what we were building, seeing if we had early interest. And so we created what we called our Trailblazer program, which it wasn't the same kind of same discounts, but it still was heavily discounted for being an early kind of customer. And I want to say we probably kept the Trailblazer program intact for the first 20 or so customer of ours before we felt like we had enough critical mass where we didn't have to de-risk it as much.
And walk me maybe just through some timelines. Like you started this business early 2020, mid 2020?
The height of the pandemic, so it was like May of 2020. Yeah, and so the co-founders, we were like meeting in my backyard outside because we couldn't even like go in a building together.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And so, so you start mid 2020. When do you raise like the first round of funding?
So I was fortunate that I had some friends and family that had invested in my previous venture, that when I said I was going to start another one, they basically said, hey, sign us up. And so we raised friends and family pretty much from the get-go in 2020. And then
how much did you raise?
We raised $2 million. I had given them enough of a return that they were willing to put a percentage back into this other
bit of a no-brainer.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. And so early 2021 is when we went live with our first customer, kind of got the first product to market, over about 6 months, let's call it.
Like post your 3 beta customers?
No, that was live with our 3 beta customers was
okay. In beginning of 21.
Beginning of 2021. Yeah.
And how long did you work with them until you launched?
Basically from the middle of 2020 to early 21. So call it 6 months.
6 months with those 3 beta customers, and then you went like fully live.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in kind of mid 21, you raised a pretty massive seed, no? Like $14 million or so?
Yeah, it was 14 total. But that included the convertible notes. So that included that friends and family round. And we were seeing enough interest in the market. Our investors, Revolution, they took a gamble on us because while they saw a lot of market interest, we didn't have live ARR or what we had was very little. So, they saw this pipeline of like, hey, call it, $1 million of interest in the pipeline at various stages, but we're basically betting on the entrepreneurs and the vision.
But if you went live early 21, then how come you didn't have meaningful ARR, let's say like 6 months later, or any ARR 6 months later?
Oh, we did. I mean, but it was like meaningful in the sense of
it was like a few $100K.
Yeah, like 10K a month or something like that. 15K a month. Right. Yeah.
And so you raised that round, and then I guess walk me through the trajectory from then on. Like, when did you feel like you really started to hit kind of an inflection point?
Yeah, I would say in 2021, we went from 0 to call it 250K by the end of the year. And then 22, we went from 250 to like 3 million. So that is, probably where
it's a big year.
Yeah, that's a big year, right? Where we saw that kind of inflection point. And so it was then in the middle of it was then the kind of spring of 23 we went out to raise our Series A round. Now, one thing to mention, some pretty seismic shifts happened. If anyone remembers, in 21 and 22 in kind of venture land, with that famous Sequoia memo about getting fit. And we, even in the midst of our growth and having success, we did have to do a riff to make sure that we got our unit economics in place. And because the reality of the funding world had changed, right, rather rapidly and dramatically. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't wait too long. And so, in hindsight, while it's super difficult, this would have been somewhere
What did you
20.
go from? Like how many employees to how many employees?
We probably went from like 30 to 20, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's big, right?
Yeah. And like that was probably the most excruciating part of the journey.
Although I'm surprised just from the sense of like, I mean, 30 employees and 3 million ARR, like that seems pretty good at a high level, no?
Yeah, yes, but our burn, as I projected our burnout, I'm always operate. I think the number one job of a CEO is to make sure that the company doesn't run out of money. You can survive everything else, but if you run out of money, then it's game's over, right? And so I operate from the sense of like, I'm assuming I'm never going to raise another round, even to this day. We have $20 million on our balance sheet, and I'm operating like we're not going to raise more money. Now we might. There's probably more of a chance that we do than we don't. But that's just my mentality, is because I want to control our destiny, and I want our products and our customers to be the deciding factor. Not that I've was too aggressive in the hiring and the spend.
So does that mean you always kind of operate on this kind of like path to profitability? Like you always have that planned out on what you have in your current burn, your kind of, let's say, conservative growth assumptions, you can become profitable on your own?
Yeah. So after I raise every time, I look at, okay, what would it take to get to profitability? Because I think even strategically, now there are maybe cases where the TAM is so large and the market moves so fast that you decide that you just have to, burn and pray. Fortunately, in our market, neither is true, and so we can burn when we do burn, but we can do it intelligently. And I always think that having maximum optionality, so to never, if you want to raise, but never have to be in a position where you have to raise, and that actually, when you're talking to VCs and they know you have to raise, that you're giving them leverage versus having the option to raise.
And so, but ultimately you did raise a Series A, right? In 22, what did that look like? Who was it from?
Yeah, so we raised from Bessemer, and we were fortunate, even in the tough market, all these media stories about funding drying up, and we were fortunate partly because I had moved so quickly in getting our unit economics right. We had something like 8 or 10 term sheets, and so
this is the second half of 22 at this point?
This was in June of 22.
Just as it's turning around, 8 to 10 term sheets is probably about, like, you'd say, the highest number I've ever heard. Like I've heard 2, 3, 5, even like peak 21.
Yes. So it was kind of crazy. And I think in hindsight, while most of it was true, there was still enough dry powder looking for high quality deals, and there just weren't that many in market. And so
where were you at? Like ARR, was it, I guess it's like 5, 6-ish?
Yeah, we were probably around 4 or 5 at that point. Yeah. The other thing I've done is and this was same with our seed, I've never maximized valuation as a deciding factor in the terms. And so even with this A round that Bessemer led, I had offers for other firms at a higher valuation. But for me, getting the right firm, the right partner, as I told the partner who joined our board from Bessemer, I said, if you don't create enough value to bridge that, call it $10 million valuation difference in me choosing you, then I've badly misjudged the value I think you can bring us.
That's legit. And so ultimately, how big was that Series A?
So that Series A was about 20 million, and we did about 15. I'm always dilution sensitive, and so we did about 15 in primary, and then gave our early friends and family had the option to sell, at a nice return. So some were able to take some chips off. Some chose to take some chips off the table.
What do you think about secondaries? Like personally, I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, if I'm a founder, and this is a privilege, right? Because you got to get yourself in a position where secondaries are an option, obviously. But if you can, I just think taking some chips off the table at anything beyond like seed plus and above is a bit of a no-brainer. Unless, like, I mean, in your case, you had an exit, so maybe you didn't need to. But like, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but I think like if you haven't had that liquidity event yet, taking some chips off the table almost every time, small amounts, right, is a bit of a no-brainer.
100%. So that's actually what I did is I told the investors, I said, I'm not taking any chips on the table personally because I don't need to, and I want the longer term upside. But I said, I want each co-founder to be allowed to take that had not had previous exits, be allowed to take a certain percentage, like you said, not a big one, but some, to the point where they're able to pay their mortgage off, and like that's life, like they're not going out buying Lamborghinis, but if you take I strongly believe that if you're not worried about, paying your electricity bill, next month, then you're going to be able to operate at a higher level than if you have that fear. And so that's what we did in that situation.
I totally agree, and I think like that's one thing, especially from a first time founder perspective. You might not understand what like a small amount means. It's not that small. It's certainly not that big, but it's not that small. Like even on a $5 million round, again, you have to put yourself in this position. But like on a $5 million round, could you take $500,000 off the table, $250K off the table? Probably. On a $10 million round, could you take one and a half off the table? Probably, right? Split amongst the co-founders and the early employees and these sort of things. But like you said, that could pay half your mortgage, all your mortgage. Like it can put you in a materially different financial situation where
fund your kids' college, fund whatever it is, right?
Exactly. Okay, and let me ask one more question before we stop, which is what changed? Like, you have these betas, you get to 250K ARR, and then you have that banner year, like 250K to 3 million. Obviously growth continued, but that was like a huge inflection point. What happened that year, you think, looking back, that led to things really taking off the way they did?
Yeah, one of the unique things about the accounting industry, and there are other industries like this, but it's very reputation based, meaning firms talk to each other. They go to conferences. They will share, information across firms. And I think there was just a certain amount of viral word of mouth about Aiwyn creating value for these firms. And, a firm doesn't want to leave money on the ground if it can pick it up, right? And so I think that year was the year where, when we were early on, those three firms, I can't tell you how many firms said, love the idea, this is great. We want to be your 15th customer, not your, fifth. Or, right? And so we just finally, we scratched and clawed our way.
Did you do something, though, to drive that? Like, it's one thing to have a great product and have happy customers, but did you do anything to drive that kind of word of mouth that led to that, reputation being built so quick?
What we tried to do is we tried to find some really good partners and believers in us, and just build really strong relationships with some of the folks that were our early believers, and then make them look good. So if they go and vouch for us to someone they know at another firm, like that puts the pressure on us to deliver, right? That quality experience. One thing I haven't talked about that we focused early on is there's a frustration in the industry with some of the incumbents that their customer service can be lacking. And so we said we're going to strive to have a white glove customer experience. And so that's kind of the bar. Now, of course, we're not perfect at that. Whether there are time, things that we get wrong, but hopefully every firm that works with us knows that we care and we try really hard. And just knowing that is differentiating outside of even any of the technology.
Well, we'll stop it there, and I'll just ask the two questions that we always end on. The first one is, when did you personally feel like you'd found a product market fit?
I would say it was at the end of 21, when we had call 30 firms. It was kind of enough critical mass that you knew you probably weren't just a flash in the pan.
And then the other question is, if you could go back in time to when you were just starting Aiwyn with one piece of advice for yourself, what might that be?
Continue to focus on the people that you bring into the company. At the end of the day, that your company is nothing more, nothing less than the collection of people and individuals that you have in there. And so that's the number one thing at the end of the day, right? Is who you're working with, and just make sure to take your time and make sure you get the right people in, because it only takes a few mishires to really ruin a special culture. And we've been fortunate. And I think we've been pretty good at that. But I don't think that's something that I could emphasize enough to my earlier self.
Perfect. Well, Justin, thanks so much for jumping on the show. It's been great.
Pablo, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
If you listen to this episode and the show and you like it, I have a huge favor to ask for you. Well, it's actually a really small favor, but it has huge impact. But whichever app you're listening to this episode on, take it out, go to Product Market Fit Show and leave a review, please. It's going to help. It's not just going to help me, to be clear. It's going to help other founders discover the show, because the algorithms, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, whether it's any other podcast player, one of the big things they look at is frequency of reviews. It's quantity of reviews. And the reality is, if all of you listening right now left reviews, we would have thousands of reviews. So please take literally a minute, even if you're just writing like great podcast or I love this podcast, whatever it is, just write a few words. Obviously, the longer the better, the more detailed the better, but write anything, leave 5 stars, and you will be helping me, but most importantly, many other founders just like you discover the show. Thank you.